After hearing the news that Vinesh Phogat is disqualified, I am shocked and I am disappointed also. And I had come here and met the Vinesh, and she was physically okay and medically also she is okay, but mentally she is a little bit disappointed. And whatever in yesterday night, our support staff, her support staff, and our support staff all are with her to reduce the from weight from increase to 2.7 to 50 kg. So they were trying their best, and even I am here to village because I have to be with other athletes also, those who are going to participate today, and get them to be in the track. I think yesterday whole night doctors and all not slept, and they have done their maximum to be in, for Vinesh. So I think doctor will explain or
Yeah.
I think.
So what I'll do is I'll just give out a short statement. I think that will clarify things. So I think what's important to understand is that all wrestlers usually participate in a weight category that's less than their natural weight. This gives them an advantage since they are fighting with less stronger opponents. Now, this process of weight cut involves a calculated restriction of food and water, and we also involve a lot of excessive sweating, which is done with exercise, with sauna, with steam, and thereby we achieve that weight cut prior to the morning weigh-in. Now, this weight cut causes weakness and causes some amount of energy depletion, and this is really counterproductive to participation. And hence, for participation, we do need to then restore energy with some amounts of water and some amounts of energy foods. So you can see this is a fine balance. If you can reduce your weight, you're going to be fighting with less stronger opponents. So most wrestlers prefer that. At the same time, you have to have a strategy which you are going to be able to get back your energy with enough water depletion, with enough water restoration and food. Now, this is typically calculated by the team with that wrestler. So Vinesh's nutritionist and team had calculated this to be about 1.5 kgs. And this is a team that's been working with her since many, many years. And she's extremely comfortable with that team. And this has actually worked with her in the past. So she took in that 1.5 kgs, which is necessary for her to be able to fight those 3 bouts. And I think it's important to remember that usually once you have this weight loss, it's by dehydration. So as soon as you take water, there's going to be a rebound increase in your weight. And during the bouts, because she had 3 really difficult bouts, she did need to have some amount of water because you do want to rehydrate, because otherwise it's going to be medically a problem to participate. So you do require some amount of nutrition and some amount of water. Now, her post-participation weight at the end of the semi-finals in the evening was found to be 2.7 kilograms more than the allowed weight. And the team and the coach started off their usual process, which is, of course, limitation of water, no food, and you started with the whole process of sweating it out. And typically, you require some amount of time for that, but unfortunately, we didn't have too much time. We had just 12 hours. So the whole night, the entire team, went ahead with this whole process of trying to reduce her weight, putting her in a steam and sauna, making her exercise, and whatever was medically possible, we tried our best to try and get that weight down. And when she couldn't sweat anymore, we even had to go to some drastic measures like cutting off her hair, and they wear a vest, so we shortened that vest, so even a few milligrams if we can reduce, we tried. And despite all of this, at about 7:15 to 7:30 is the weigh-in, and we wanted to try the best, so we got her weight done right at the end at around 7:29. It was unfortunately 100 grams over 50 kilograms. If we maybe had a few hours more, we could have achieved that 100 grams, but we just didn't have that time. Now, once she was disqualified, then the question was, as a precautionary measure, we do need to rehydrate her. And the best way to rehydrate an athlete is by giving an intravenous fluid. So we gave her a few intravenous fluids. She started eating and drinking. She's passed urine, and she's otherwise perfectly normal, physically and medically. We've got her blood tests done just as a precautionary measure. We always do that. That's a routine. And those blood tests are also okay. And Vinesh, of course, has interacted with IOA President Dr. Mrs. P.T. Usha. And, she's told her that, look, physically and medically I'm okay. But of course, undoubtedly, she's disappointed. This is her third Olympics. She was really keen to try and do something for the country. But because of this 100 grams has been disqualified.
Dr. Bagewala, this is Vimal Mohan for Vinity. I just wanted to ask because she has fought in this weight category earlier also, and this happens to all across the world. She's not the only athlete or only wrestler who has come through this process. Has it happened, I mean this time, has it happened for the first time with her, or do you have any precautionary measures so that it doesn't happen to other wrestlers? I mean somebody has to take some responsibility about it.
See, I think we need to remember that every human being is a little different. Every human being is going to be a little different from weight loss. Males are different from females. Age makes a difference. All this makes a difference. What's also important to remember is that usually you have a normal or a natural weight, and that's your normal natural weight, and you can cut that down. And typically, till February of 24, she was participating in the 53 kilogram weight. So normally, an athlete or a wrestler like her will be about 55, 56 and will go to the 53 weight. And that's the normal sort of process. And she was very comfortable with that process. But from February, because that category had already been occupied, and as you know, if only one wrestler from a country can go into one weight category. So since that weight category was already taken by another wrestler, she had two options. Either she cuts her weight down tremendously and tries to go to the 50 category, or she goes a weight up. But if she goes a weight up, she's going to be wrestling with much stronger athletes. And she felt that that would be of no point because she's not going to be successful there. So after considering everything, and she took quite a lot of time to decide which would be the best option for her, she and her team took the call that they're going to go for the 50 kilogram weight category. And I think it was a good decision because, as you can see, she beat the reigning champion in that first round, and she was able to achieve that. Now, since February that she's been participating in this 50 kilogram weight category, this of course happens. Now, athletes when they're training, you don't want to keep them at 50 because if they are below their natural weight, there's a high chance of injuries taking place. So this is a sport with a lot of injuries, and you have to really fine-tune and balance it. So your weight is slightly higher when you're training, but when the process of competition comes, then you drop your weight. And you drop your weight, and it's relatively easier to do it for that first weigh in because you have enough time for that. But it depends also on how your bouts go on that first day. If you had just one bout, then it would have been no problem at all because then you have enough time to recover. But if you have had to go through 3 bouts and each of those bouts is difficult and you have to hydrate yourself, otherwise you're going to collapse out there, then you're going to have to do everything that you can do to participate well that day and then take the next challenge, which is, okay, now I need to lose my weight. And the time was short, but of course we are still going to do everything possible within our means. Within the limits of medical safety, we're going to do everything possible to cut that weight down. So that process started immediately. I think she did everything that she could. She didn't have one morsel of food. She took, almost no sips of water. And her entire team, which has been doing this in the past, was taking care of this whole process. Of course, all of us were there to support her and to just medically make sure that everything's going off well. If we had a little more time, I'm sure we'd have had it. Unfortunately, time just fell short and we just didn't have enough time to get that 100 grams out of her.
So when you say medical
Yes.
parameters,
Yes.
how close was she? And was there a point where you had to step in and say, I can't, or we can't push her anymore?
See,
Was it close to that?
well, we are all human beings and we have a limit and a capability of doing some amount of exercise. So when you have to sweat it out, if any of you exercise, you'll know that most of us will exercise for an hour or 2 hours. A really good athlete may train for 3 or 4 hours. But if you have to try and sweat it out for 6 hours, 7 hours, 8 hours, there's a limit to human endurance. So you're trying to sweat it out. You're trying to do it with a lot of other equipment that makes you sweat. You've got your heat covers and all that going on. And so we have to keep monitoring her. So our main aim was to monitor her and make sure that she's perfectly all right, because medically that comes first. Participation, of course, is important, but at the same time, medically she needs to be okay. And so while medically monitoring her, fortunately, everything was okay. This is a process that she's done day in, day out since many, many years. She's been an Olympian. This is her third Olympics. She's been doing this process. So she's been, accustomed to this. And fortunately, medically, of course, everything was okay.
Ma'am, there's been a lot of talk about appeals and protests. The WFI has also written to UWW, but we are just 4 hours away from the final bout starting. Is realistically there any chance of any sort of change in the decision that has already taken place of Vinesh being disqualified?
Actually, they'll go on rules only, but we have done from our part, we have done our best through through that wrestling federation. And then even I am going to meet the World Wrestling Federation president also just now. Doing our best.
Ma'am, you said initially that you have spent time with her, but how is she doing mentally? Mentally, how is she? Has she sort of been able to get back to how she was, or it's very devastating for her, and you have psychologists and everyone around her at the moment?
So I met her and she was so strong, na? That is why she could do there, and even from there also she's strong, but she's done her best.
Everyone around her at the moment.
So she's strong, but she's done her best, I think, to reduce the weight. What I felt best, but even for hair also they have cut, no. So
डॉक्टर पादरीवाला और हम क्या कर सकते हैं कि आगे ऐसा कुछ नहीं हो? किसी को तो रिस्पांसिबिलिटी लेनी पड़ेगी.
See, every human body is different, and you can try the processes again and again and again, and that's what training is. कि अगर आप train कर रहे हो, you train yourself, you train yourself, you train yourself, so that when the day of participation comes, you do well. So the same way, a supports team also does the same process. They train the body, train the body, train the body, that every time, you could achieve that same result. But as you know, many people train so well, they achieve their personal best in training, but when it comes to participation, sometimes the body may not be, for many variable reasons, able to achieve that, because of how different the human body is for everyone else. So the same thing here, that you can do that whole process of weight loss multiple times, and multiple times that whole process may have worked. But if time is sometimes short, it may not necessarily work. So what are her options? So her options are that when she's competing these difficult bouts, she doesn't take fluid and she doesn't take something that's going to give her energy and lose the semi-final, or think that let me get my semi-final done. I need enough strength, enough hydration at least to go through my semi-final bout, and then I'll work towards what comes after that. And so that's the approach that she took, and medically that's the correct approach. And I think that if we just had a little more time, unfortunately we just didn't have that time. So if say, in the future, rules were made where you have enough time, it's not 12 hours that you have to do a weigh-in, but you have, say, 16 hours or 18 hours, I think it becomes easier for us as medical support staff to achieve that goal.
Doc, was there a condition? Has she never encountered a situation like this before? Would Vinesh have known her? I mean, was there a situation that Vinesh didn't know her body very well, how much weight she could cut in the space of 12 hours? Or did this just come about suddenly?
I think whenever something like this happens, this has happened last night. We've been up right from 10 o'clock when this process started, and all of us have been doing this whole thing throughout the night. I think it takes some time before we can analyze the situation, audit, and try and see what are the processes that we can do that are going to make it better. This right now is the gold standard, but is the gold standard good enough? Can we do something better? I think we'll need to assess, analyze, and we haven't had the time to do that as yet.
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
अरे बाप रे, इनका हाथ कम रहेगा कितना?
Raj sir, thank you.
Thank you for your support.
So total heartbreak, the explanations, the questions, the absolute, lack of any possible recourse now. Protests have been lodged, investigations will happen, but who will be held accountable for this? This was not just about Vinesh. She had a very, very qualified staff around her. How could they have not seen what was going on? How could they have not prepared for this? It's easy to point fingers now. It's tempting to want someone to blame, but the question is, with a goal within grasping distance from a heroic athlete like Vinesh Phogat, who stole this from her? We will demand accountability from the Indian Olympic Association, from Olympic Gold Quest and all the other agencies involved in this, including in the government.